What's up, everybody? It's your boy. Round two is beginning. Round one is in the books. Normally, when you think about what makes a good round one, you think close series, game sevens, multiple upsets. But sometimes it only takes one series and one upset to really make an entire round. But the good news is we got it. The Knicks won, baby. Unbelievable against all odds in every way. We're never gonna have a comeback, or it wasn't a comeback. We're never gonna have an upset like this upset, I think, ever. So if you got to watch the stream, be glad you did. It was sick. All right, let's just get into the results and the normal stuff. All right, so the Nets annihilated the Heat. There's really nothing to take from this. The Heat did get a random win where they shut down Olin, but it's pretty hard to read into a single loss when the other four games were just like brutal annihilations. The Nets will be playing the Pacers, who annihilated the Wizards. Annihilated is a strong word. They beat the Wizards handily. There's a little drama with the injury to Chuck. I think in terms of changing the outcome of the series, not super impactful. A little more impactful in the sense that the Brian iteration of these Wizards is probably on life support at this point. Could they be a bottom 5 seed in the East? Of course they could. Anybody could. But is there really any way to lie to yourself and act like there's a reason to keep this team together to play with them? Not really. So tough for the Wiz. But now we get the Pacers versus the Nets, and I feel like this is the Eastern. I feel like in both these round twos in each conference, we're actually getting the conference finals early. I think the 1 and the 4 seed matchups in both conferences are the two best teams. For the Pacers and the Nets specifically, the Pacers have a nice, well-rounded team. The big question for the Pacers is, will the three-point shooting hold up well, and will the defense hold up well? I think, your best bet is to get Joe Sandberg on Olin and hope that goes well. I forget if Olin played against Joe Sandberg in the finals that I won. I want to say he didn't, but it's definitely an intriguing thing, right? Joe Sandberg is a reasonably athletic 6'8" guy. He plays good posty, he plays good perimeter D, he gets turnovers, and he shoots the three ball, and the three ball is it's unstoppable. So I like the Pacers overall as a squad. They're not as good as the Nets, but with the three ball, with Pollard, with Sullivan, with Sandberg, I think there's a lot of hope that, those threes could start dropping and it could go well for the Pacers. The big area of concern, aside from Olin existing, is, look, Claudio has great ratings. No one can take that away from him. However, the problem is that Ted Guillen is 7'4" and athletic. And if I'm not mistaken, the Pacers have Claudio Villanueva as their starting center. The size and the athleticism mismatch, is not a great look. I'm definitely concerned that, Guillen isn't going to get a ton of shots, but it's one of those things, I know Claudio's, captain A+ in terms of, the ratings, but his athleticism is not what it once was, and he's only 6'11". 6'10", That's always been the big knock for Claudio, has been the size. It's concerning. I don't think I would ever favor the Nets to lose in the first case, but I think it's the lack of a big man on the side of the Pacers that gives me the biggest concern. I could see the guards for the Pacers actually doing quite well again with the three ball. I'm very concerned on the big side of things. And then Henry Piercy is if you're the Nets, do you go Olin at power forward and get that Percy matchup and try to shut Piercy down and then know he's a terrible defender and let Olin eat on him? Not the worst plan in the world. Maybe the Pacers could get really sneaky and play Villanueva at power forward as to be the Olin stopper in the paint. It could be interesting. You still have the Guillen problem. I guess at that point, the Guillen idea is just that you pray he doesn't get the ball enough to be impactful. In any case, I think it'll be an interesting series. I expect there to be a little drama, but I think this is going to settle as just covering the screen with my shit. This will settle to a nice 4-2 Nets win. This is less a testament that I hate the Pacers and more a testament that I think these Nets are very, very good, and it takes a hell of a team to beat them. So Nets move on and into what will be an absolute cakewalk of a Eastern Conference Finals. So on the Eastern Conference Finals, all right. So the Hawks blow it to the Knicks. I think this Knicks team is duty. Even if you think that Renee Snyder and Ira Dean are good players, and I'm here for that take. I get it. I still think Dimitri Smith is bad, especially when you consider his scoring. And whatever, what is it, Don Scott and like Marty Taylor, some shit like that? That's the rest of this team. This team's awful. I went back and I looked because a lot of flack was made in the game chats at the time, with the idea being that the reason the Hawks lost was because of Granny kind of selling short or just choking. And it's not that Granny had a great series. Granny did score 22 points per game, 60% true shooting. Those numbers are both a touch low from his season averages, but not awful. Like if you told me your main guy is going to get you 22 points per game in a playoff series at 60% true shooting, I'd probably be okay with you. The person who threw this game is Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray, second leading scorer on the team, 48% true shooting. And he's just got no one to defend on this Knicks team, right? Like the Knicks small forward is Stuart Lozier. Stuart Lozier, just like, I mean, he sucks. So like he always sucks, and he continued to suck in the playoffs. So the defense of Keegan Murray gave the Hawks nothing extra, and they had the terrible scoring. The Hawks' dysfunction is that like Keegan Murray is taking shots from Jason Jackson, who also, I should note, was absolutely terrible against a shorter, less athletic Dimitri Smith. But he's also only scoring 12 points a game. So, like, I don't know. It just a catastrophic showing from the Hawks. I never liked this Hawks squad, but I didn't think they were this bad. No one thought they were this bad. No one could have predicted this. This is insane. So congratulations to the Knicks for moving on. However, they face a severe uphill battle with Ira Dean being injured. On the Sixers side of things, this Sixers-Hornets series was just razor thin. I know it only went to 6, but if I'm not mistaken, like 4 of these games were like single possession-y style games. I'm just going to check right now. 1, 2, 3. 3 of them were like settled by 4 points or less. And then another one by 6. Yeah, so this, not to disrespect the Sixers, but this was just a close series. One of these teams were going to win. They were pretty evenly matched. I liked the Hornets, but the person who seemed to be the big difference maker in the series was Skeeter Jones, who had himself quite a good series. Lots of scoring, 25 points per game, only on 58% true shooting, but that's still good. I mean, sometimes we can get lost in like these mega players, which the Sixers and the Hornets do not have. So the Sixers move on. I think the Sixers just earned themselves a free trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Gomez and Skeeter Jones will just tear the Knicks apart. I think Gomez has certainly shown more of a proclivity to not get randomly stopped in the playoffs. He's a little bit of a, well, granted, Granny is kind of the same way. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say, well, this time the Knicks will get caught when they caught the Hawks, but like, come on, this Knicks team is bad. Without Ira Dean, there's really nothing to expect from this team. So I think the Sixers are going to kind of I just changed the numbers. I pressed the button. I'm going to fix my mistake really quickly, but I'll fill in this series as well. I think the Sixers are going to cruise to a 4-0. I'll just say it. Without Ira Dean, this Knicks lineup, like Oliver will be able to, assuming he does, obviously change his lineup. But like they only have like 7 guys that should even be in the RBSL. Well, they might have less guys. Some of these guys who are going to get minutes should arguably be in the DRBSL at this point, but it's kind of going to be like we saw in Game 7 of that amazing Knicks upset. Lots of 48 minutes a game coming from New York in what I expect to be a loss, which will give us a Sixers-Nets Eastern Conference Finals, which, hey, this is going to be like, well, this is maybe disrespectful. This will be like Jack talking about the Mobley Finals where it's like, yeah, you made it, but like this one especially would be like the asterisks of all asterisks. But hey, make the Eastern Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference is just dookie. Beat the Nets and then talk some shit. Yeah, a lot of hate on Jack for no real reason. Next, we have the Clippers sneaking by the Mavericks. The Clippers really just disappointed here. Look, there are pieces on the Mavericks that are likable. Victor Bart is an interesting, albeit limited, big man. Ludmila Pavlyuchenko is a legitimate, straight-up good player. Walker Kessler is another legitimate, straight up good player. And there's not a lot else beyond those guys. We saw Peanut Butter hit a game-winning shot against the Clippers. Peanut Butter shouldn't even be getting minutes in the RBSL. The dude is shit. He's trash. He's awful. Just like this Clippers team, really, I didn't like them. I kind of slandered them indirectly in the first Zachetology. A lot of jump shotty guys. I like Mike Mortar, but Mike Mortar didn't exactly show up in this playoff series. 56% true shooting, 13 points per game. I don't know how Doc's minutes are set up, but he was at 30 points a game. I would be giving him a little more still. I think compared to Gustavo Estes and Jesus Veloso, I still like Mortar and what he does all up. Just because of his like less fouls, more volume type shooting. Francois Santoro was awful. Emmett Joyce looked mid. Emmett Joyce did have a big game, so like it came at the right time, but then when you average the stats all out, he looks like one of those mid jump shooty guys that will just really struggle against better defense. I don't know if it was if he got the direct matchup on Ludmila, who's a solid defender, but he also might have just had a great matchup and still only done 56% true shooting, which is just not super inspiring. The Rockets beat the Suns. This Rockets team, now that I've kind of been deciding who to hate on more between the Clippers and the Rockets, and now that I've settled and they're going to play each other, I think I like the Rockets more. There are problems with this Rockets squad. Not the biggest fan of the Rockets guards. I'm a pretty big Sophie Roach hater. Sophie Roach didn't exactly do anything inspiring in round one with a lovely 50% flat true shooting. However, the Rockets do have a piece of their team that I think is fantastic, and it's the front court. Cantor Bakwa is one of my favorite young players. I've said it many times. He's awesome. And then West Eastwood and Wilfred Nichols, although they're both a little over the hill, and we saw that show in this series when you go back and look at the stats, they're quality. Like, having those two dudes as your other power forward center along with Bakwa and then as your backup, that's a fine rotation that'll get you, like, average playoff level. I like Harlan Davis as, like, a specialty defensive stopper. And then the rest I don't love so much. I'm not a big John Stogner guy. I think he does all the wrong things well and all the important things not as well. And we saw that in the playoffs where he scored 44% true shooting. Granted, he was like a bench guy, but still not great. So when it comes to this matchup, the big matchup difference here is that the Rockets have a front court that I think is just better than the Clippers. And the problem for the Clippers is, like, first of all, I've completely given up on the idea that the Clippers are going to score efficiently after seeing that Mavs series. Their offense just looked poopy. Like, aside from the one Emmett Joyce game, and again, I don't think Emmett Joyce was up against, the Mavericks D was decidedly mid on the season. I think they were ranked like 15th. They were ranked 13th. So 13th for a playoff team is pretty bad. And the Clippers were a top 5 offense. They were 7th. So you would expect the Clippers to be getting a lot of good run of their offense. We didn't see any of that. So I would expect the Clippers big men, especially Gustavo Estes and Mike Mortar, to have looked very good, especially against Victor Bart, who I know gets blocks, but like is like a D post defender and has like F- quickness. These are some big holes in the defensive makeup of a like anchor big man, and it's only going to get harder because Bakwa is like Victor Bart, except he also plays posty and he's athletic and he doesn't foul. I think the Clippers will get categorically shut down on offense. And then, while I don't think the Rockets will necessarily stand out on their own offensive side, I think they have more answers to the problem by way of just like packing the paint, giving looks to Will Four, giving looks to West Eastwood, giving looks to Omer Rosenberg. I know like West Eastwood is straight up not efficient, but I think Will Four is probably going to be the big difference maker here. Like Omer Rosenberg will get looks. How many looks will he get? You know, he's probably coming off the bench for 20 minutes to try and get 20 points per game. And if he can hit 55% true shooting, that's all he's going to need. And the Clippers, like at that small forward position, have Broderick Lewis, who's all right. But Broderick has shown signs of aging, especially in the athleticism, where his jump is now down to F, which is not great. So all in all, I'm expecting the Rockets to win here. The only thing they have to overcome is home court, which is tough, but not impossible. I don't even know if I think this will go to 7 after how bad the Clippers looked. I think the Rockets just will run the front court, and it'll be that simple. I'll give the Clippers 2 and I will give the Rockets 4, and the Rockets move on. Now we go out to the West for the 1-seeded Jazz, 4-seeded Sonics. So the Sonics, it was like a cruise against the Thunder. It wasn't quite total annihilation, but it was very comfortable. This is like obviously harping on how good your own team is and how you knew all along is something nobody wants to listen to. But I did say it before, and I do still think it's true. The Sonics are kind of sandbaggers for the regular season. This team feels like everybody was built for the playoffs, and they showed that with the three-point shooting consistently being like over 40% in every single game. The big men playing really good defense on kind of what I think is an underrated Thunder front court. And yeah, really just the Sonics as a whole, it all came together super well. And then the Jazz annihilated the Pelicans. The Knicks might have, with this insane upset, earned the status of not the worst team in the playoffs. The Pelicans truly looked awful. The Jazz are great, but I mean, the Pelicans didn't even show a glimmer of fight in a single matchup. I mean, what was the closest margin of any game that was played between the Jazz and the Pelicans was 29 points, 24 points. I mean, it was bad. It was a blowout every single game. Jazz versus the Sonics. So I think the Jazz and the Sonics are the two best teams, but just because they're the two best teams doesn't mean that I think this is a super close series. I think the Jazz are like maybe not head and shoulders better than the Sonics, but definitely like head better, at least, if you get what I mean. The Sonics, the front court is where the Sonics, I think, have their strength. The weakness for the Jazz is like, okay, you have Bastion right court, fantastic young center, almost a perfect all-around machine, but he's a little foul-y. He doesn't do the blocks. Maybe not the best rebounder. And then the other person that's going to play the power forward slot, assuming Keith Palm doesn't do anything crazy like move Randy Brand to power forward or move Chance Roman to power forward, is going to be Jewel Hammock or Cass Distrofisi. I don't like either of them. They have athleticism problems. And the thing is like against certain front courts, that's fine because a lot of teams don't have two guys to play in the front court. Not the case against the Sonics. The Sonics have two very good, rock-solid athletes in Seth Charles and Wilt. And so the big question is just like, who do you think you want Bastion to get matched up against? It's like the advantage of Wilt is that Wilt is a little bit foul-y and he's less of a man defender, but Wilt's also fucking enormous at 7'4" and gets blocks. So there's not a great answer. And then both those guys score the ball a lot. So it's like when you put Jewel or Cass on either of them, you worry about that guy going off. That's the hope for the Sonics. The problem for the Sonics is that Chance Roman, who's almost certainly going to be the small forward, is going to be matched up against Ney. And while Ney is great, and I think Ney's offense is absolutely unstoppable, I don't know if Ney is built super well to stop Chance's kind of like inside assault. And then when we go to the guards, Randy Brown is just better than the Sonics guards. I like the Sonics guards a lot. Very good. The combo of Augusto Salustiano, Alexander Sirski, and Michael Lewis is a very good, like, there's no star players there, but they're all very good. They all shoot the three ball well. They play great defense. But Randy Brown is like a special player. Randy Brown's like a top 5 player in the league. And the Jazz have their own good fill-in at point guard in Frederick Thompson or whatever his name is. Frederick Jones, excuse me, and Alfredo Purdue. On the whole, the talent level is just a little higher with the Jazz this season than it is for the Sonics. The Sonics' path to victory will basically be get a few good three-point shooting games and win the front court battle. For the Jazz, it'll just be like everybody chips in, especially if Bastion can't get stopped consistently. It's probably going to be over because I really do think that on the guard side of things, like even if the Sonics get Alexander Sirski matched up on Randy Brown, I just don't know how much Randy Brown can realistically be stopped just because he's 7 feet tall and he shoots the ball well and so on. Although I do think that would be the magic matchup because Alexander Sirski is pretty big at 6'5" for a guard, pretty athletic, and a crazy good defender. He's just one of those, like the Jazz have some of these matchup-proof guys. I find Chance Roman to also be pretty matchup-proof. The fouls will be the thing. So like if it all goes wrong for the Jazz, we'll get a couple Chance Roman foul-out games. We'll get a couple games where Bastion gets shut down. And that might be all it takes for the Sonics to win. But the Jazz are heavily favored. So I'm feeling 4-2 in favor of the Jazz here. But I think, if you're Palm, you're probably, both of us should be upset that we're playing in this situation, because it feels like it would have been a better Western Conference Finals. But that's because I suck, and I did this to myself. So all in all, I think then we'll get the conference finals, which if it pans out like this, I'll probably skip only because the Nets, I think, are going to absolutely wax the 76ers or the Knicks, and the Jazz are going to absolutely wax the Rockets or the Clippers. Sorry, Bryant, not to disrespect you like that. I just really think that's what's going to happen. So this will probably be the last Zachetology for the season, barring some big drama. And then the big question, the Nets versus the Jazz, who wins? I'm tempted to go Jazz here, but it's tricky. There's a lot of matchups to talk about here. I think I'll leave it up to a poll when we get to the point of the people. I'll just preemptively say Jazz in 7. I think that's fun. Every time Idwin doesn't lose is better for the league. And I got my ring before Palm, so now he can win. The old rings don't count. But anyways, Zachetology, predictions in the books. Stay tuned. Hopefully we get another Knicks victory. Toodles.